Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Leisure Services Committee meeting tonight on Tuesday, the 17th of November. Do we have any, well, before we actually start the meeting, I'm going to pass it over to Kevin because we're having a trial on the system during the meeting tonight. I'd like him to actually explain it to everyone. Kevin?
Yes, thank you. Just for information for everybody, we're just going to try a couple of things to hopefully make the committee meetings a little smoother going forwards. One of those things I really want to do is to have everybody muted, and I'll manage that unless they're speaking. And you'll need to unmute yourself when you want to speak, and then I can remute people. And also, what I'll be doing is helping assisting the chair with the order in which hands go up in order to speak, because I know we've had some situations where someone's been accidentally overlooked because they're at the top, and there's a lot for the chairperson to try and keep on top of. So I'm hoping if you can bear with me, I'm going to try and manage that a bit better going forward. So we're going to trial it tonight and see how we do. And I think it will really help us when we get to the full council meeting as well to be able to do that. So the only difference really for people is that you will be muted unless you've got your hand up and you're invited to speak. Then you can unmute yourself, and I'll just keep an eye on that, and hopefully that will work out for the better. We'll see how we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Deborah, Linda, have we got any apologies for tonight?
I have apologies from Councillor Al Sanjari.
Right.
And I think also then Councillor Ramuni, he
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be here, so I think maybe he has been unable to join.
Right. Yeah. Right. Have we got any declarations of interest? No. Then we'll move on to item 3, the minutes of the meeting held on 1st of September, which I hope everyone's had the opportunity to read. Do we have any comments on those minutes, or is it in order for me to sign them off?
Councillor Doyle has his hand up, Chair.
Councillor Doyle.
Thank you very much. Item 4, just around the corner, second paragraph. The implication there is that Sam's answer to me is that he works with a number of agencies. If you actually check the recording, he doesn't mention any other agencies other than ARC. The implication is that he said there was several agencies, but he didn't mention several agencies. He only mentioned ARC. So it's a matter of accuracy in recording the minutes.
Right. Sam, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, okay, yes. Basically, we work with mainly the PCSOs. I would class them as an agency. And we work with the schools. And we work with social care.
Right. You didn't say that in the minutes in the last meeting, though. When I asked the question, you only said ARC. I was deliberately looking for you to say that you work with the PCSOs. That's why I asked the question.
Well, perhaps you could have asked me out direct.
Well, my question was pretty direct.
Right. Well, I think it's been answered, Councillor Doyle.
But the minutes of the meeting are not accurate as far as the meeting are concerned.
Well, they're an accurate.
They can go in the minutes for this.
What was said at the meeting.
What was said at the meeting is not what is reflected in these minutes.
The item there says Sam Millen answered questions about JAC's outreach and confirmed that they blah, blah, blah. He also confirmed that work closely with other agencies, such as ARC. Just given one example there. I wouldn't expect someone normally to have to list
Right.
every
Okay.
single agency that
Let's
they
leave
work
it there,
for.
Mr. Chair. In terms of that particular point, it is recorded. I've got a recording of it. I will forward you the section that I'm referring to. Okay. The next point that I want to raise is point 9 in the minutes, quality impact assessment.
Yep.
It says in here that the members considered whether to arrange for an equality impact assessment to be carried out on the current provider of detached youth work in Woodley. That isn't the case. What we did is we listened to the recommendations of the town clerk, whose recommendation was to put off any equality impact assessment and until 2021, April 2021, you called for a vote on that, and then there was a vote in favour of that by 3-2. No one considered whether it would be done on the current provider of detached youth work. Nobody. It was a recommendation by the town clerk in report number LS 1320.
Well, the voting was actually 4 against 3. If you look,
The voting's irrelevant. The minutes of the meeting do not reflect what actually happened in the meeting.
minutes reflect that we had a vote on the equality impact assessment being delayed until 1st of April 2021.
Right. I contend that this is not an accurate recording of the minutes of the meeting. You have to remember that these meetings are recorded. I literally sat and looked at them. No one discussed whether the current supplier of detached work was evaluated with an equality impact assessment. It wasn't considered in any way, shape or form. All you did was take the recommendation by the town clerk, vote on that and accepted that.
Well, that's not my memory of the meeting, Councillor Doyle. We
Again, I shall take.
We did discuss this quite fully as to the reasons, and it was decided that it was better to defer
I want it
until
recorded in the
April
minutes,
20.
please, Linda, that I'm objecting to the accuracy of these minutes.
Okay, well, your objection is noted.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just ask, is it the resolution that you're arguing against?
No, what I'm actually arguing against is the wording. It says in the minutes that members considered whether to arrange for an equality impact assessment to be carried out on the current provider of detached youth work in Woodley. That is not what was done. Linda, Deborah laid out report number LS 1320, and her recommendation was to delay the equality impact assessment until 2021. Then there was a vote that the chair, Councillor Bragg, said, we will vote on whether to accept the recommendation or not. Yeah. No one discussed doing anything with an equality impact assessment on the current provider. That wasn't considered.
Councillor Heap has his hand up, Chair. Just for...
I must admit, I don't remember this discussion of whether it should be carried out on the existing provider at all. I think the entire debate is whether or not we postpone it or not, and we did. The vote was to postpone it, but I don't recall anything about discussing anything about the current provider. I must admit, I don't recall that, and if that's not on the recording, then clearly it should be amended.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. You probably don't have it with you, but if you refer back to the agenda for this meeting, on page 23, the top paragraph, which is 7 lines long, is all about exactly this topic. So it was on the agenda. I'm not, because I haven't meticulously watched all the video. I'm not going to say it wasn't debated, but it was there put in front of you with the opportunity to be debated, but to actually say it was never ever mentioned, it's there in black and white. If you didn't read it, I'm sorry, that's your problem. If you read it and you didn't raise
I do
it,
not accept
I
what
do, and please do not speak over me, Mr. Councillor Doyle. That is very rude. If you didn't raise it, then that's not our fault. I'm sorry. That is the fact.
we're talking about what it says in the minutes of the meeting.
The minutes of the meeting state impacted to be whether to arrange it to be carried out on the current provider whose contract ran until the end of March 21, or to carry this work out when the new contract was awarded. That was passed. So in my mind, the minutes are correct. So your objection is noted, Councillor Doyle.
And I would like
but
my objection recorded.
Well, your objection has been recorded.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any more questions on the minutes? So is it in order for me to sign the original? All those in favour? Yep. I can't actually see them. Can you tell me?
Can I just ask that people use their electronic raise hand function, please?
Okay, that's 4 votes for. So that's agreed.
That's agreed.
Agreed, yeah.
Right, okay, thank you. Right, we'll move on to item 4, just around the corner, to receive the report from JAC. Sam, would you like to elaborate on your report? You're muted, Sam.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, there's just one thing, well, 2 things. First of all, I would like to pass my gratitude on to the mayor, so for selecting me for the award this year. I'm deeply privileged, so thank you all so much, and the mayor. First of all, I suppose the one thing I would like to just highlight, actually, in some minutes, that how successful the skate park has been. It has been really well used all over the lockdown, and it was especially for younger families and parents coming down. It was really good. It was really good to see. So, and I would just like to put there for, if there's development in around that area, if and when it does come, that I've noted that the young people would like a wider landing area. And I know this is probably a subject that needs a lot of concern, but especially in the winter time, actually, if it could be possible to put a couple of lights in there that be on timers that would go off at a certain time, so that the early part of the evening, young people could use it. Because what we're finding is that if I could generalize, primary school kids use it straight after school. And like tonight, for example, there was 2 lads who are older, probably year 11 or year 12. And they were down there with their mobile phones, but they were just practicing tricks and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just from that point of view, actually, I would just put it in there. In any any future development of the area if it could be considered. And other than that, yeah,
Right.
that's what I'd like to draw attention to.
I mean, certainly that's something that will be considered in the future.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what we say. We just reassure people that, you know, we can make this representation, and if we can't promise anything, basically, we just make the recommendation.
I've made a note of that, and certainly I will bring it up again in the future when I think it's an appropriate time.
Councillor Heap has his hand up, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Heap.
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for providing the statistical data on your activities and amount of contacts. I think that's very useful, and clearly you've been keeping that information anyway. So appreciate that. One or two questions. You mentioned fireworks being put through letterboxes. I wondered, did you have enough information to actually go to the police, report that? This is not a joke. You put a firework through a letterbox that can burn a house down. So was there sufficient information that you had that was enough for you to go and report this to the police?
Could I say it come that way round?
Sorry?
The information come that way round?
From the police?
Yeah.
Oh, it came from the police?
Yeah.
I see. I understand. Well, that's fine. Okay. And actually, one point, the activities at Loddon Mead obviously been
excuse me, can I just clarify that? It was from police officer, and I don't know if they were out on the street or not that night. I want to clarify that.
But so they're aware of it. Yeah, fine. Okay. And just one point on Loddon Mead. I go there. I try and go there about once a week to do some litter clearance. That's small. It's something I've been doing while COVID's been on. And more recently, it hasn't been a problem, but there have been quite a few paint canisters left in the park, in the area which is basically used by wildlife. And you know, if you have influence, could you bring some influence to bear on them? You know, we can't have this. I've taken away quite a few paint canisters from that area over the months, and you know, we do need to impress on them that that's an area used for people, for quiet contemplation, and for the wildlife, and it's not a dumping ground.
Can I just say we had those conversations, and they do have that conversation within their own group. There's people inside the group trying to put pressure on, because they realize actually that's not good for them. You know, that looking, if you look over the railway side, it's probably worse than the Loddon Mead side, but they're aware of that. And one guy suggested, you know, if there was bins put in, they would encourage people to put in their stuff into the bins.
Yeah, but not to leave it in brambles and bushes.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to say. When there's no bins there, if there was bins there, they would put stuff in. So
they take them there from somewhere else. They can take them back afterwards.
Yeah.
We can't have them leaving stuff in that area. And I'm assuming we're going to refer to your letter as a separate item. Again, was there any evidence of drug activity that you're aware of?
Down there?
No. Not down there. I mean, since the last meeting, you know, is there any? Have you seen any evidence of drug activity?
There is always smells, if I can put it that way, of cannabis around different areas. But that's that's ongoing since ever we first started. And a matter of fact, it's not as blatant now as it was in the past, but there is cannabis use because the aroma lingers for quite a while with certain strains of it.
Okay, so there is an issue.
Some people do partake of it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right, any more questions at all for Sam? Alison.
Hello, Sam.
Hello.
I've noticed recently, sort of groups of 5 or 6 teenagers gathering outside the Bournemouth Leisure Centre because although it's closed, it's well lit and there are benches outside it. So I wondered if that was an area that you might be looking at. Yeah,
I'm not quite sure, but we have the same issue at South Lake Shops, where we have a lit area and we have a brick wall, and it's just nice height for sitting on and lining certain things across the wall. So that could be the same. What I think I said in my report actually that for your information, South Lake is a sort of halfway point or a drop-off point between there and Solihull. Well, people are going to use Solihull or coming back from Solihull back into Woodley, and they would use that wall and a lit area. And that's what people are asking for actually, is lit areas and seats. So
just at the moment, obviously in lockdown, we shouldn't be seeing people gathering.
Yes. Yeah.
Could I just mention that about the smell? I think anyone who uses public transport knows that every Reading bus smells quite strongly of cannabis.
Yeah.
Right.
There is, just to clarify that point, there is groups out, but the groups even have become a lot smaller since this lockdown has actually taken place, and there is a few. There's more than 2. Like one the other Friday night there was 3, and Thursday night there was 4 on the Pagoda. And yeah, so it's just engaging them and saying, and what they come up with is our school bubble. They're in their school bubble. Yeah, so it's just a discussion point.
Right. Thank you, Sam.
Councillor Doyle has his hand up, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you very much. I note the letter that you have sent to the committee.
Councillor Doyle, can I stop you there? That is the next item on the agenda.
Is it?
Yeah.
So we're going to discuss that next.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. So thank you, Sam, for that report. Right, 4B is to receive the letter from JAC regarding the current service level agreement. It's come before us for note and for any comments, but anything relating to the service agreement, I feel will need to be passed through S&R committee. But please pass any comments that you've got on that, and we will see that they are presented to S&R at the same time. Comments, please. Councillor Heap, you.
Well, first of all, can we actually confirm what is meant by this? Are Jack saying they want to be released from their contract? And are they also suggesting that there is no provision for youth? Because at the bottom they're saying consider postponing the tendering for youth provision for at least another year. So those two put together, I read as being that there's going to be no provision for youth from this council for that period. So first of all, I want to understand before I ask any questions, is whether I understand what they're saying correctly. Thank you.
Sam, do you want to comment on that? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, certainly from my own point of view, under the discussion we had last night, yes, you've seen a lot of people out and about with family visits and the food deliveries. But from understanding, the walkabout town is meeting very, very few individuals. I believe that you told me 4 on Friday nights out in the pagoda, and 3 on
3.
Thursday night.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Chairman. I do
Yeah.
want to understand
Yeah.
exactly what is being proposed.
Yes.
And as I read it, Jack want to be released from their contract, and also suggesting, from what they say at the bottom, that we postpone the tendering for youth provision. So that suggests to me that we're going to stop any youth provision that's provided by the council, and that's not going to resume until sometime way into the future. Now, is my understanding correct, or is it not?
Yes. The first paragraph is there, that we would have a cessation of the contract for the remaining 6 months. So yeah, the bottom one is taking into consideration that we still don't know the trends and what trends are actually coming down the line. We don't know exactly what the young people would prefer. What we get is actually like lights and seats and stuff like that. But that's only from a group of young people out in the streets. So that is in the way that 2 things. One, we don't know exactly what young people might be requiring, and secondly, we don't know going back over, say, after Christmas into the new year, and what restrictions will actually be put on us, and about numbers who are allowed to congregate and things like that. And if you take it, and then you have to start to work out what is the best way of, in our opinion, this is just a suggestion. From our opinion, you have to work out, well, what's the new restrictions and the new landscape? How do we deliver? How do we deliver youth work?
Chairman, can I now I understand what's been suggested? Can I make my comments, or do you want
Yes,
to do them later?
please do.
Well, I'm most concerned about this. We consider it necessary to provide this for, I understand, at least 20 years. We've had no recommendations from officers. We've just seen this letter from Jack, so I'm surprised that we've had nothing, any comments from officers. If this service has been required the last 20 years, I see no reason why it should stop now. If Jack want to give it up, obviously that's up to them, and that's perfectly legitimate. But I don't think we as a council should respond to this by just saying, oh, right, we're just going to leave it, we're not going to do anything. I think we need to, if anything, speed up the tendering process. Because if Jack doesn't want to do it, we could well find that there are other providers that will. I see in the middle of a pandemic, to actually stop this provision now would be criminal. It really would. I see no, the kids under a lot of pressure, as we all are. I see absolutely no reason why this provision should stop. And it should be for the council to make that decision. It shouldn't be for the service provider to make that suggestion. If you or if the officers have come forward with this suggestion, I think that would be a different thing. But it's not for a service provider to suggest to the council that it should no longer provide that service. And I want that view to be taken, if this is going to be decided by SNR, to be taken to SNR, so they know my feelings.
Well, very, very much, Councillor Heath. I mean, I think we're all concerned about the youth work. We are in particularly difficult times at the moment. We don't know what this situation is going to be from day to day. We're back in lockdown at the moment, ostensibly only until the 2nd of December. But who knows how long it will continue after that, if at all it does. Until December, and we get to know what is happening after the lockdown comes to an end, it's going to be difficult for any of us to actually judge what is possible. And from a personal point of view, I don't see any provider of youth services is in a position to come up with a plan at the moment. But I take account of your point, which is a good point. What is going to happen to the youth in the meantime, which is why this has come before this committee, to get feelings back from the councillors.
Councillor Baker has his hand up, Chair.
Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In response to Councillor Heap's or Alex's comments, as chair of SNR, I can guarantee your comments will be noted. However, I disagree with your complaint about a provider making recommendations like this. Ultimately, it will be the officers who will review those recommendations and make proposals to the SNR committee to decide. I actually welcome any provider making suggestions, good or bad, because you cannot say that officers and councillors are the only ones who actually have the bright ideas, or even the bad ideas as well. It works both ways. So I don't have a problem with that. Looking at the letter, the paragraph after the bullets, 1, 2, 3, 4, Jack clearly says that they're still committed to meeting young people. So I would hope that would give you some comfort that if we start, well, okay, you're shaking your head, so clearly not. And the last point is the final paragraph, which you had concerns about. What would be in the tender? And I think this is the $64,000 question. The tender was put together 3, 4, 5 years ago, I think it was. It's a long time ago. And I think no one can deny the situation with youth and the outreach requirements then is fundamentally different. And Sam could comment because he's got 20 years experience, much more than mine. You cannot think it's exactly the same. So the question then comes up, what do you put in the tender document? Because you're going to lock someone in for typically 3 years, extendable by an extra 2. So 5 years based on what the tender document says, what you're expecting. I don't think I can sit down and write such a thing. I think I would struggle to comment on such a thing because I don't think we've got the base data. And that's part of the Community Youth Partnership survey, to get that base data to shape the tender so that we get the service we want based on experience and knowledge there. If SNR decide to postpone it, there's nothing for 12 months, there's nothing to stop in 6 months' time for them to go out to tender, or 3 months' time. It doesn't, if SNR, because it depends on what the recommendations from the town clerk will be at that meeting, it doesn't mean we actually have to do this. So I welcome these suggestions from Jack. I think they are worthy of debate and discussion at SNR, but we'll take guidance from our officers, as you quite rightly said, primarily led by the town clerk. Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, can I come back on that, Chairman? I don't think Jack have made suggestions. They just said they're going to withdraw the service and then do some kind of ad hoc activities, which we presumably wouldn't have to be reported
Let me
to
just
us.
correct you there 1 second, Alex, and then you can continue. What they've actually said is like to request a suspension. That's different from cancellation.
We're fine, but either way, the youth aren't going to get a service, and we've got no idea how long that would continue for. We've seen through the period of lockdown, we have the statistics given to us. There have been 90 sessions since April. So, you know, it was possible to do work with youth when we had the lockdown. Remember April, May, that was a lockdown. So I just don't see any reason why we should suspend this. And as I say, if Jack doesn't want to do it, then we should look for alternative providers. That's my view anyway. Thank you.
Sam, you had your hand up again.
Yeah, can I just clarify, please? Yeah, the second from last, we would still continue, and what we want to try and do is add into the information that will come through the surveys, and what we would actually endeavour doing at this period of time, and we've already started, is actually starting to go out at different times and to ascertain when the young people are out and who is out, and add that into it. And another piece of work we'd like to do is actually get together a database of all the provision that's in Woodley. We don't have an up-to-date one. And I think that will be a very important part of information for whatever comes up in the future. And we will still, like other providers, still be a member of the youth partnership, which will feed into that, and that will, I take it, that will come to you, so you'll get the information as it is now, and as we build up, hopefully what we can actually do is give you more information so that you can actually start to design something that is workable for the young people. And just one other thing, Mr. Chairman. Is it, can I put it as a suggestion? Because when you go out to do a survey, I think one of the questions you need to ask is who you trying to target, or who you trying to engage with. Because traditionally, if you're trying to engage with a lot of young people who prefer to hang out on the streets with their friend, you may find that, and I emphasize, you may find that a really hard target group to engage. Whereas there's other groups who will engage, but you may not find them. So the big question for me is, who do you want the service to target, and where is the need for that targeted service? Yeah, so all that information hopefully will be collected together, and you'll have a fuller package to put together a service level agreement for the young people, knowing who you want to target and how you're going to deliver that in the years to come.
All right, thank you. Councillor Dole, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to say that, frankly, I praise Jack for saying that at this point in time they don't feel that they can adequately provide a service that isn't actually required out there. I know that Jack valued the money they receive as part of this contract quite greatly, and to actually go without it must be causing a pinch on their part. I like Alex, feel a little bit concerned about so the suggestion that we put off any kind of a tender for any form of youth service. I think that we have a rather important job to complete in the fairly short order, which is to determine what we want from youth services going forward. And I don't think it's any secret that I've had my own opinion on what those youth services should be and how they should be formed. I've been quite open and quite frank about it. I don't believe that we should be putting off for what is effectively 18 months any form of youth provision at all. I really think that that is something that we should avoid at all cost. And what we should do is to quite quickly come up with. Now, you know, I'm always going on about I'm the new councillor and I don't really know how it all works, but who is responsible for determining what form the youth services we provide going forward are? Is it us as councillors? Is it the officers of the council? Is it based on a study? And I welcome Jack's input into any form of, you know, whatever they can bring as input. I welcome that quite greatly because obviously they've got a lot of experience doing this. But we have to make some decisions, and I'd like to understand, Mr. Chair, is that our committee that comes up with these recommendations for what we want from youth provision going forward? That's a question to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Community Youth Partnership was designed specifically to discuss the aspects of youth. And they went through this last week at the last Youth Partnership meeting. And one of the main things that I've been able to get from that is the level of anxiety amongst the youth at the moment, particularly in schools and even going down to primary schools in one or two instances. I've already made approach through Citizens Advice Bureau for some advice on that. Bear in mind, Wokingham CAB are entering into a project covering mental health issues in early very, very shortly. I've made approaches there to see whether there's any feedback we can get whereby that process can be linked in to the anxiety amongst the youth. Obviously, this is early stages. I only received a temporary email myself last night on the issue. So I can't really go into full detail over that. But anxiety is a problem. It is being looked at by Sam and indeed by Paul Cassidy on that committee of ARC, and they are looking into that situation as to how it can be arranged. Again, with youth matters, they are discussed at the Community Youth Partnership and recommendations do come down to us. Ultimately, with the service level agreement, it's not this committee that will make the decision, although we might put a recommendation through, it would be S&R committee that has to come to agreement on that, any service level agreement. I hope that answers your question.
Not really, sorry. I'm sure you mean to be answering my question, but you're failing to, in my opinion. Is it this committee that makes a decision about what constitutes youth service provision going forward?
This committee can put recommendations through, yes. But it is a recommendation. It's not us that would have the final say.
Right, okay. So I'm on the right committee if I want to start sort of driving forward with
You're welcome to
forms
put
of youth
forward
provision.
suggestions at any time, Councillor Dwyer.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sam, you wanted to come back.
Yeah, just to clarify again, it's not that we're unable to provide the service. We're on unprecedented times, yes, and everybody's having to change the way they do things. But in real terms, actually, the number of young people out in the street is still declining.
Yeah. Right. Well, look, I see time's rolling on. We're going to have to bring this to a close, this item. This really does need referring to S&R committee because they will have the final decision on any service level agreement. I think I'm correct on that, Councillor Baker.
Sorry, I think you should refer the question to the town clerk about what the process is for, because I would expect officers will gather the data and information and make a second set of recommendations that will go through ultimately through S&R. But Deborah's in the best position, sorry, the town clerk is in the best position to comment on the process, because that's what really Councillor Doyle's asking about.
Would you care to respond, Deborah, please?
Yes, I will do. I think the point is, if the council is going to discuss a service level agreement, that is the remit of strategy and resources. So it wouldn't prevent leisure services discussing that and putting something forward to strategy and resources. And that may be the way to do it.
Right. Well, I've got to admit, I'm a little bit lost as to how to proceed with this. But quite honestly, in the circumstances we are in at this particular moment in time, it is difficult to argue against the request from Jacks. And I think it would be just as difficult if we went out to tender immediately for another organisation to come up with a suitable tender in the current climate. So at the moment, I intend to move this up to S&R committee for them to consider it, and then we will report back on it at the next meeting. Okay.
Councillor Heap has his hand up.
Councillor Heap.
Chairman, some of us obviously aren't agreeing with this letter. I would have thought it'd be reasonable to have a vote. I mean, are you proposing that you'll take this to S&R with a recommendation that they accept it? Because if you're going to do that, you can't make that decision on your own.
No,
the committee has to make that decision.
To S&R for them to look at the overall procedure.
But what is your recommendation to? What is your recommendation to them? I mean, you're suggesting that the committee is somehow agreeing with this letter. I certainly am not. And I don't want the minutes to reflect that the whole committee agreed with this letter and recommended it to S&R.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point on that. So I will actually put it to a vote. But the suggestion is that this letter be sent to S&R committee for consideration and advice and comment.
Councillor
that this
Baker.
committee is in a position to do it. Councillor Baker, you?
I'm just suggesting a way forward that I hope would satisfy everyone. I personally would not want to go to a vote because this agenda item is just to receive the letter,
Yeah.
not to make any recommendations.
Patience.
But as I said earlier, I'm the chairman of Strategy and Resources. I've heard Councillor Doyle, I've heard Councillor Heap speak against the contents of the letter, and I can guarantee I will take that forward. But I'm sure you will, you have representation on there, and your representation would also reflect that view. Forcing, this is just to receive the letter. It's not to make a recommendation. And I'm making a commitment now, and it's on video, so Councillor Doyle can read and visit and whatever, and it can be minuted as well to keep him happy. All right, that I do reflect your views on the principles of the letter, which is, just to recap, is that you do not want to delay the tender, and you don't want to stop the outreach work for the next 6 months, i.e. the offer for suspension of the SLA should be refused from your two perspectives. I think that's a fair summary. It's in the video. I know Councillor McCann would pick me up very quickly if I don't reflect that at SNR. Now, I hope, is that acceptable to Councillor Heap and Doyle?
Councillor Heap, Councillor Doyle, have you any objections to that?
Well, what I've just heard Councillor Baker suggest is that you turn down what's been offered in the letter on 2 counts. Well, that's what I heard.
No, that is not the case.
The recommendation to SNR is, as I understood it, have I got that wrong?
Well,
yes, you have, Councillor Doyle.
What was the
I'm saying is
recommendation to SNR?
no recommendation from this committee other than individual views, which I will relay. I'm committed to relay specifically those 2 views. The problem, can I suggest, the problem, Councillor Doyle, is if we go to a vote, this committee then will have 1 view, which will be whoever wins that vote. Surely you don't want that. You want the mixture of views that is here to go forward. If you do a vote, only 1 view will go forward, and I'm pretty certain it's not going to be your view.
And I'm not asking for that either. And I agree with you that whatever goes to SNR has to be the request from Jack. That's what goes to SNR. They've made a request, take the letter to them. But so far as this
goes from here,
its voices will be
recommendation.
I'm sorry, can I just reiterate what Councillor Baker says to me? It's very rude to speak over people. The point is, here is the letter. It will go to S&R. We're not making recommendations, is my understanding. There will, at S&R, be the opportunity to express views. I will be attending S&R, and I will expect the chair of S&R to enable me to speak on the subject. Okay, well, and I just want to correct Councillor Baker on one matter. I actually congratulated Jack on what they've put in this letter. I did not object to it. I object only to the cancellation of the tendering. The fact that they're being honest enough to say, look, there isn't enough bloody work out there to justify what we're doing, I think is a very honest thing to do. And that's effectively what they've done.
Okay.
That is noted, Councillor Doyle.
Yeah,
that's noted. Thank you.
Sam, one
quick response. Can I just say from the Youth Working Party, you'll have to put this into the mix. In January, we will be 1 year on from getting a survey done.
Yes.
And schools at the present time are so inundated trying to do what they have to do. I would suggest that a survey is pretty low down their league table at the present time, probably. The schools are the best way to gauge, but that's only one way. So there's into this also is taking the consideration that if it's taken us a year to come here and we haven't got a survey yet, and probably the surveys that have went out will have to be rejigged, taking into consideration the environment we're in at the moment, then it's going to take a period of time for you as a group to formulate what you actually need. So the information may not come as quickly as you wanted. I think that I'm trying to reflect that in the letter as well. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Right, well, we will move on to the next item on the agenda. We've received a letter from Jackson, which will be sent over. Item 5, Community Youth Partnership. We need to appoint a member to the vacant place on the Community Youth Partnership, which is a Liberal place. Councillor Doyle, Alex Heap, do you have a recommendation for the vacant place?
Yes, I'm going to stand for the place.
You're going to stand.
Yeah, Alex, are you going to second that?
Sorry, Councillor Heap, you're on mute.
Sorry, yes, I'll second that. Thank you.
You'll second that. Right. So we ought to take a vote on that. Is everyone in agreement?
Excuse me, can I just clarify? So can Councillor Doyle nominate himself? Is that acceptable?
Deborah. Deborah.
There's the place on the Community Youth Partnership is a place for a Liberal Democrat member, and if Councillor Doyle has been asked to sit on that, I don't think it needs this committee to approve him.
Okay.
It's his place.
Okay. So
It's my understanding, because it's a Lib Dem place.
Yeah, that was my understanding as well. So Councillor Doyle, without vote, you are appointed to place on the Community Youth Partnership. Item B of 5 is the minutes of the Community Youth Partnership, which are shown on page 12. If there are any comments on those. No, that's the minutes of the 15th of October. Most people were there. So move on to the minutes of the Community Youth Partnership held on the 4th of November 2020. Has everyone had the opportunity to read those? Yes? No comments?
Councillor Heap has his hand up, Chair.
Councillor Heap. You're on mute again, Councillor Heap.
So sorry. Concerned about the point about the survey. Yeah, we've all had a lot of inconvenience. I work for my company in the corner just to my left there, with the computer stuck on some A4 paper, but I'm still doing my job. I don't see. Obviously, initially, COVID was a reason for holding up this survey, but I don't see that is the case now. I would like to know what's in the survey, and also I'd like to, Councillor Al Sanjari, let us know exactly where it is. But I think it is very relevant we get this from the children, their own views. You know, COVID doesn't stop them going in on their phone or their computer and filling in the survey. And hopefully there's a few extra sections on it to add comments which could cover the unforeseen situations that we have now. So I'm hoping that, you know, we're going to get this survey done. It was cited as a reason for not proceeding with Councillor Doyle's motion. So it's obviously was considered important enough at that point that we wait for it. And I think we should, if for whatever reason, you know, it isn't proceeded with, then we'll have to readdress the situation. But I don't think the fact that we've got COVID is any reason why we should stop doing this survey. I was the one that actually raised this initially a year and a half ago at the first meeting I attended because of the lack of young people included in the town survey. So I've had an interest in this right since then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would agree with you. I also would like to see what is included in that survey. But I believe you may have an update, Deborah.
I do. I spoke to Councillor Al-Sanjari on Friday last week, and her main difficulty is actually at the moment getting the schools to actually respond to her, so that she has sent the surveys in. I think Bullmarsh School, well, neither of the schools are running it, is my understanding. That's what she thinks as well. And she was going to speak to them about that. I will also ask Councillor Al-Sanjari if she would share the contents of the survey with me as well. But we didn't speak about that on Friday when I talked to her.
Yeah. Are you happy with that, Councillor Hick? You're on mute again.
An email at the wrong time. Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Right. Councillor Swaddle, you got your hand raised?
Do I understand that this survey has not been approved by either this committee or the Youth Partnership?
Yeah, at the moment, yes.
How can it be a Woodley Town Council survey?
Well, that's part of, well, there is some difficulty there because obviously when Councillor Al-Sanjari was putting the survey together, she was a member of the Community Youth Partnership. She isn't anymore, but she is still progressing the survey. And I will speak to her about what's in the survey. I know there are members of the Community Youth Partnership who want to understand that as well.
Yeah, and could I just add that I'm not surprised at all that the schools haven't been able to respond or do this. From what I understand at Bullmarsh, you know, the amount of positive cases and self-isolation and having to not have an entire year group in one day and the other, and the teachers trying to teach online and in person, they're all absolutely run off their feet. So I really would not like any aspersions cast at all that the schools aren't keen to engage. I mean, COVID is hitting them really hard. Their life's very, very difficult at the moment.
Yeah, if I could just say, Chairman, I know that Councillor Al-Sanjari knows that because she works in a secondary school as well, and she's doing the kinds of things you're talking about and finding they've got to turn up and teach for other people and all sorts of things. So yes, it was. There wasn't a complaint about that. It was just that she hadn't heard back from them and she had hoped to.
Right, thank you. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I fully understand all the issues. However, we've got a member here, Councillor Doyle, who at great length explained that he was part of the pilot to try out the survey before it was issued at one of the community youth partnerships. Unfortunately, although it's on the video, it wasn't actually documented in the minutes that he said that. I don't think. I'd have to go back and check. So maybe, bearing in mind Councillor Al-Sanjari, because she is a teacher, she's a key worker, she's not going to have, I don't think she's going to have much time to let us know what the content is. But Councillor Doyle, as he explained, was like a what do you call it, a trial of the survey. So maybe he could
Yes,
send
on page 13, Keith.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for
It
that.
does say
Thank you for the correction.
additional software which Councillor Doyle had tested.
Okay, apologies to Councillor Doyle if I've maligned him in any way. I withdraw that totally and utterly before he had to go at me. But maybe Councillor Doyle could share, not at this meeting, but share by an email or something with the town clerk the contents or the thrust of the survey to allow us to move forward, because I share Councillor Heap's concerns that we're waiting and waiting and waiting for whatever reason. You know, I'm not making a judgment on the reason. We do need to move it forward, and at the moment we're all in the dark about what the survey is asking. Thank you.
No, I accept that, Councillor Baker. Are you able to do that, Councillor Doyle?
Well, yes, I'm not here to speak for Councillor Al-Sanjari. What I can say is that this business about has the CYP approved the survey, I find all a little bit after the fact, frankly. Councillor Al-Sanjari offered at a CYP meeting to get some people from Reading University, put a piece of software together that she would then place in the schools for children in IT lessons to answer. My part in the exercise was simply to help her test the piece of software, which I duly did. I do have a copy of it, but I'm not going to make that copy public because it may not be the piece of software that Councillor Al-Sanjari put forward in the schools. But this business about CYP having approved this survey, I don't accept that that was the case. I do not remember anyone saying to Councillor Al-Sanjari, please come back to this committee with your survey. The job she was sent away to do was to produce a survey. Okay?
I haven't
You
got
can smile all you like, Councillor Baker.
I haven't got the minutes
to do.
To my hand, but I do remember actually seeing this in the town council minutes from the beginning of the year. Sam.
I don't know what you're on about. You know, I was
could
there
I
at
just,
the meeting.
as chair of that group, can I clarify? She was not sent away to do it. She said she was going to do it, and it was taken as read that the partnership would actually see it. Because we believe it's our role to make a recommendation to this committee of what we have seen, and then you take it to wherever you want. So we just assumed that there would be a process in that. But can I clarify? She was not sent away to do it. She offered to do it on her own volition.
And it was taken by the committee that she would do that. Is that the case?
Yes.
Yes,
Actually, in the minutes of the meeting where that was agreed, it was agreed that she would circulate the survey to the members of the Community Youth Partnership so that they would understand what the survey was asking before it went to the schools. And that was before February half term.
Are you quoting from the minutes of the meeting right now?
No, I'm quoting from the minutes that I wrote of the meeting before the end of January, I think it was, beginning of January.
Anyway, my understanding is that she was asked to produce a survey. Okay. Now, whether that is a survey that is completed or whether it is a bunch of questions is the matter in question.
Well, let's not argue about it anymore, Councillor Doyle.
We're going to argue
we all agree that the survey has not been completed. It's
That's
no
fine.
good having repercussions
That's fine.
about that. We will wait until Deborah's managed to have further discussions with Councillor Al-Sanjari and get a copy of that survey. If it hasn't been done, then we're going to have to get together about arranging for a proper survey. Okay. So I'll get, now we've, that's the minutes of the Community Youth Partnership on 4th November. So we're going to move on now to item 6, the budgetary control, which are on pages 18 and 19. Now, Deborah, did you want to talk about these?
Yes, of course. I think the main thing to explain on page 18, which is expenditure, is that you can see straight away that the only expenditure that is at 58% is the Garden of Remembrance, and that's because I think we've sold some plaques to go up in the Garden of Remembrance, which has caused that figure to be that high. Obviously, there's a balancing figure underneath with the income from the people who have ordered the plaques. I think really the main reason for the underspending against the Leisure Services Committee budget is the fact that we were on lockdown between spring and summer, and we didn't spend as much as we might normally have spent on utilities, for example. In terms of income, you can see I've provided, this is on page 19, I've provided what amount of the actual income included furlough, and you can see from that furlough income has come to just to about £71,000, with income from actual leisure services at £97,000. Not very much income.
Right. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask?
Councillor Heap has his hand.
Can I ask, on football, it appears that the expenses have gone down since the last meeting. I thought the last time we had this chart, it was 6589. Now it's gone down.
I think that is because there was something wrongly allocated to football in terms of the income. I think because I think I changed it recently.
Okay, right, yeah. And the other point I made, I did send this and I copied it to the chairman, Councillor Berry. I think there is a need not just to have these figures for where we are now, but to have a forecast of where we'll be at the end of the year, because without that, how are we going to make management decisions? I made a projection, and I gather it's not massively different from yours, which amazes me. I'm sure yours is much better designed than mine. But as a committee, I think we should be considering, now really as what we do, given that we have this COVID situation, and that this committee should have maybe an estimate of where we'll be at the end of the year, rather than waiting till the end of the year and finding out what the deficit is whether we have some kind of plan now as to what we do about it. I appreciate you've got this so-called urgency committee, but I think each committee has a responsibility to think about what we do, and if we have this forecast of what the situation will be at the end of the year, it would help us to do that. And clearly you've got something like that anyway at your fingertips. Thank you.
Sorry, yes, I have, Councillor Heap, but it doesn't mean it'll be what happens in the end necessarily. So the Leisure Services Manager and I've worked particularly on Woodford Park Leisure Centre, because that is the area where we used to get most of our income and probably still will this year, even though it won't look like last year's income at all. I think I explained to you in our correspondence that we were looking at different scenarios, and we've taken the midway scenario at the moment. But of course, the next time that this committee meets will be the 12th of January, and that will have revised estimates in it. I'm happy to talk to anybody about what they think is happening. Ed's been very helpful, and so have the other managers who look after the other areas that are listed there.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Any other questions at all on that? No. Then we'll move on to item 7 on the agenda, which is Woodford Park Leisure Centre Sports Development and Activities. Ed, I think this is down to you, if you're...
Yeah, that's right. Everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. So as Deborah knows, I kind of wrote this report 3 times in different ways based on different stages of restrictions. So this version that in front of you is kind of obviously reflective of what's currently happening. The centre closed on the 5th of November. That was all of our facilities, all of our activities. And as you'll note there, all centre staff have been re-furloughed. It was particularly disappointing this time around because we just about got back to not where we were, but a good level, I suppose, of business. Everything was kind of running smoothly, actually. And I suppose in relation to that, the one positive from all of this is that when we came out of the first lockdown, whilst we were prepared, we didn't really know what to expect. Whereas this time, I would like to think we know what to expect. There are a couple of variables, of course. We're kind of predicting that when we come out of this lockdown, if we do come out as planned on Wednesday, the 2nd of December, that will be placed into one of the tiers. And each tier has different restrictions for leisure. So we're kind of waiting to see, basically. And we're also prepared because things have changed so quickly in leisure. Rules have been tweaked and changed as each individual NGB has had their own restrictions changed. But we've kind of got a couple of scenarios planned and a couple of different timetables planned, should I say, for whatever we're allowed to do. We had prepared budgets for the kind of the different tiers, with the idea that we were going to move up them, and then obviously that changed quite quickly. And now we've basically, as Deborah mentioned, had a few different scenarios based on different lengths of closure. Obviously, we're hopeful that it will only be for the 4 weeks originally planned, but that might change. Any questions relating to the closure at all?
Councillor Doyle, you've got a question?
Just a quick one, Ed. I appreciate the effort you're taking to talk to us. Somebody that hasn't got their speaker muted is doing work with paper and keypads, and it's really it's interfering with sound. So could I ask Kevin just to make sure that people are muted when somebody speaks?
I will. I think it might be coming from Ed's microphone on his. You on your phone? I think it might be that, but I will mute everybody and we'll see if it continues.
Can you hear me now? Okay, I can't hear you, but if you can hear me, I'll carry on talking. So we've also teamed up, as you can see there, with the First Days Children's Charity. Now, this was a kind of a bit of a spur of the moment thing, actually. They contacted me a few days before closure asking for help, as a lot of their drop-off points got kind of drastically changed with the obviously announcement of the lockdown. It's not actually as complicated as it sounds. Basically, we have a drop-off point at the front doors of the leisure centre, and local people can come and drop off donations for the charity. The charity sort the donations into stockings and then distribute them to children that otherwise may not get a stocking at Christmas. So far, the amount of donations we've had have been pretty overwhelming for the charity. They were originally planning on picking up the donations once a week. They've actually at certain points had to do it daily, and it's been quite nice actually to see kind of how generous people have been. I'll put a little link to their website there in case anyone wanted to have a look and see the other things the charity does. Similarly, I'm actually in discussions at the moment with the Woodley Food Bank, and I believe they work closely with the First Days charity as well, and they're looking to run a similar thing. So the 2 drop-off points would be next to each other. I'm actually meeting with them on Thursday, so I can't give you too much more information about that yet, but it looks like it would run in a very similar way, and that basically would be a drop-off point for 2 charities, probably all the way in the bit up to Christmas, even if we do reopen. The final point there is just a little note that I'm quite aware that all of the new protocols and all of the new procedures we put in place are a huge change for our customers, really. So all of our members and all of our centre users have had to adapt to different restrictions and rules, and they've all been brilliant. I have to admit, they've all been brilliant in following those rules. But I'm keen to not overlook that some of those rules could be difficult for them. And I'm about halfway through putting together a survey just for our customers, really, about how they feel, how safe they felt using the centre. I mean, the ultimate aim of it, of course, is to kind of see if there's any areas we can improve. I'd like to get that out before Christmas, and I'm just kind of working on how I now get that out, of course, because previously it would have been some kind of paper copy and maybe an online as well. But now, with no customers in the building, it's pretty much going to be online only. But yeah, I'll try and see if I can hear you again, but I apologise. Bear with me. Okay.
Right. Has anyone got any questions at all? About it? No. Then thank you, Ed, for that. That's
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We move on to item 8, which is parks and buildings on page 21. Kevin, I think you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That's the usual list of things that have happened and moved on. Starting with Woodford Park Leisure Centre, the maintenance team have dealt with the lamp outages in the sports hall. That's one of the areas we're looking at the potential for switching over to LED lights. It's a real pain and expensive to get up there and change those lights with the scaffold tower, etc. So we are working on that. We've had one price in, we're working on that project going forwards. A new tenant is moving into the flats. The old tenant has moved out. A new tenant is moving in this week. And we've similarly as before, we've gone through a letting agent for referencing, etc. For that. Woodford Park itself, usage has been really high over the lockdown period, which is to be expected, and I think probably shows just how important the park is to people in Woodley. It comes with its own issues in terms of use, but it has been really busy. The play areas have been allowed to remain open on this occasion through the lockdown period, but unfortunately, just to note that there have been no events obviously this year, and Park Run has yet to resume. Councillor Dawn, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, just as you were talking about it, I'm sure that everything we do with the letting of the flat above the leisure centre is up and above board. But when you mentioned a letting agent, my ears pricked up all over the show. What with being a father of several children that went to university and having to deal with letting agents, do you pay much attention of the conditions that the letting agents apply to the tenants?
Yes, is the answer. I've unfortunately quite a lot of experience with letting agents myself. The one that we've used, we have looked at them in terms of the fees that they charge to tenants, and also we are very open-minded is probably the wrong phrase, but in terms of the type of tenant, we're very open to to look at tenants. Obviously, we need security in a tenant that, you know, that rent's going to be paid, and we assure ourselves of that and do the proper checks. But yes, I think is probably the shorter answer.
One of the things that I have experience of is letting agents insisting that people buy insurance policies from specific companies and things like that. I'm just, you know, I don't like the buggers, if you want to know the truth, and I don't trust half of them. And I'm just hoping we're not putting our people that are our tenants at the mercy of these sort of people.
Yeah, we're not, and that is a factor. It's a bit of a bugbear of mine personally, and thankfully the rules have changed quite a lot. But yes.
Thank you.
Next item, just to note that a number of poplar trees along the boundary with St Dominic's School have been felled, where we had a lot of rotten trees there. We did manage to get some notices out and make people aware of that work. And there are still some more there to do. So that was carried out over the half-term period. Councillor Heap, you have your hand up there.
Thank you. Yeah, I note you say maybe replacements may be planted. I'd certainly be concerned if we didn't do something to replace the habitat for the wildlife. And while we're on the subject, on Rivermead, bushes and saplings obviously had to be removed when the new fence went in, which is fine. I just wondered what we're planning, presumably not at the moment because it's too wet, but we're planning to replace again that habitat at Rivermead.
Yeah, absolutely. The maybe bit in there relates to whether it's those particular saplings rather than maybe we'll plant something. That makes sense, is whether they were suitable for that location. But yes, certainly we will be replacing something along there. It's a very important bit of hedgerow along there, really. If we can get something established there, there's quite a mix of things there in amongst the trees. So yeah, we would look to replace that. Likewise at Rivermead Road.
Great, thank you. And a pat on the back. I'm sure you're going to come to it, but the green flag, I think that was brilliant, especially in the middle of lockdown. Proper job.
Thank you for that. So moving on, the Garden of Remembrance. We've had a new memorial seat installed down there. They're still sort of getting steady interest in new memorial seats in the park. One issue which has persisted, unfortunately, is antisocial behaviour in that area through the summer. This year, I think possibly more than last year, we had quite a lot of gathering in there over the summer period and that warmer weather, lighter evenings, etc., and various paraphernalia and debris left there overnight. It's a tricky one for us to manage. We've never really cracked it. The Friends group have been really helpful in letting us know when there's problems down there, and I think they've probably challenged people down there as well. But that does remain an issue because it's a lovely quiet area by virtue of where it is, but also that gives it the potential for misuse as it's out of sight. The sight lines in there are clearer than they used to be, and one of the seats where people tend to gather, we've taken out during the height of summer when that tends to happen, with the permission of the person who donated the seat. We've spoken to the family about it, and then we put it back. So sometimes we take that out when we know there are problems, but unfortunately that is ongoing at the moment. The green flag, yes, third year running, we've received a green flag. The feedback information has only been uploaded this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. I've been trying to log in to get a look at it, but it was a full judging year, although they had to do it very differently, but it did require a submission of a full management plan again this year, which was it's a really good exercise in itself for how we manage the park going forwards, and the team have done really well with that, and also of course the Friends group in keeping the beds and the area around the Rotary Garden looking so nice throughout that period. They didn't stop at all actually through that period, which is great. The rose bed in the Rotary Garden took some time to get rotivated and planted up. That has now got some plants in, and there's some further plants coming through Rotary for that. We did have last week a section of knee rail fencing damaged, and someone had managed to spin round on a quad bike, something similar, not quite sure, and damaged the ground there as well, which is unfortunate. We have fixed the fencing there. There are a few sections of that fencing which are going to need replacement in the not too distant future. It would have been an item for the capital programme, but it's one of those items that may be coming to a future meeting for consideration, depending on budgets available, etc. Woodford Park play area, destination play area. Myself and Colin, the maintenance manager, have met with 8, I think it's still 8, it might be 9 play companies on site to who are looking to submit tenders for that. The deadline for those tenders is the 18th of December, and we've had some really good conversations with contractors about how that might look and how it will develop. I think we're going to get some really different options come in as well, which is good. And I think the next stage after that will be consultation and obviously quite a lot of discussion about exactly what it is we want. We left it kind of deliberately fairly open to get as many ideas as we could get in. So I think that there's going to be a lot more work to do, but it's quite exciting. It's nice to have a positive in amongst some of the doom and gloom in terms of projects that we've got going at the moment. Funding for that is obviously has come from Section 106 funding for that purpose. So it's not coming from our capital projects money or anywhere else. Friends of Woodford Park, as I mentioned, they've continued through the whole lockdown period, and something that's not in there, they also managed to plant at very short notice another 1,500 bulbs in different areas around the park, which is brilliant. Allotments have been extremely busy over the period. I think it's never been as busy as it is at the moment. We've got about 60. I think that's gone up since I wrote the report, actually, on the waiting list, which is a good place to be. And one of the things to take from that as well, I think, is that the condition of the plots up there is consistently better than it's been. And that's in no small part due to the tenants committee, who put a lot of time and effort into that and work well with Heidi in managing that and getting letters out, and just that whole process. So that's been really good. There have been a couple of thefts up there, unfortunately. Those are always reported to the police by the individuals concerned so that they can be logged and followed up. There was some damage to the fence and we managed to repair that very quickly. The depot project, just by way of update, is nearing completion. The crucial bits were done, which was the toilet and shower area. There is now a proper working space for the buildings maintenance team, which has been created inside the existing building. Office space is in the process of being created in the old tractor shed building, and a lot of the concreting has been done, but it's not complete. Councillor Doyle, you have your hand.
Thanks, Kevin. You mentioned the toilet, the great peculiar monstrosity. Does that thing cost us more money than it gains us?
Do you mean the toilet in the town centre?
I do, yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, that wasn't the one I was referring to. It was okay. The toilet in the grounds depot, where there wasn't a toilet for the staff. But
is that resolved now? The toilet for the staff?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's
but the toilet in the town centre, is that thing costing us more than it's gaining us?
Yes.
Would it be a good idea to get rid of the ruddy thing?
Councillor Dodd, this isn't on the agenda.
Oh, sorry, I thought he mentioned the toilet.
Yeah, he mentioned the toilet in the maintenance building. So let's finish, please, the issue.
Thank you. There's an appendix there which we're including each time on environmental issues and wildlife. That hasn't changed very much, and from time to time it won't change very much, but the reason it's there is just as a reminder of the things we're doing. As we change something or something develops, or if someone has an idea for something new that we can put on there, that will change. Some of the things on there, again, the success stories that we've had in the last year is probably the beehives, and I think at the allotments, which has been the biggest one. Councillor Baker, so you have your hand up.
I was going to wait until you finished. I've got several things to talk about.
Oh, okay. Sure. Last on that list is the community halls. The maintenance team have decorated Chapel Hall, which was overdue, and we managed to utilise some materials left, I believe, from the Coronation Hall work. So it was a very low cost exercise. But just to note, the bookings remain very quiet in the halls, and we're doing everything we can to keep in contact with hirers and find ways to take bookings going forwards, albeit in a different way, wherever we possibly can, obviously observing the restrictions prevailing at the time. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Baker, you...
Yeah, just several small points. First of all, Kevin, you didn't report on the Woodley 10K that was actually held very, very successfully. I was one of the marshals. If you ever want to see amazing runners, just put your name forward for a marshal. It is staggering to see these guys. They are in the zone when they go past you, and it's very actually rewarding when you eventually get to the end and you see the plodders coming through, but they never stop. They never stop, even though they're almost at snail's pace. It's an amazing experience, and the social distancing was, I believe, was absolutely brilliant. Second thing was on the wildlife and Woodley, that thing that you've put up. I mentioned this last time, I'm going to mention it again, is I think this is a very good news story, that we're doing all this, or it's being done within our facilities, and we really, really ought to be somehow working that into a press release. I'm assuming something like that is up on the website with the reasonable access, not buried somewhere. And then the final thing about it, that's the sort of thing we ought to turn into some sort of poster to put into, for instance, the Woodford Park. You know, the poster, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
yes. There, and others as well.
Yeah, the poster boards have been neglected in terms of information. They do need some new information.
All right. No more questions for Kevin now? Then we'll move on to...
Councillor Swaddle has a hand up. Chair, sorry.
Sorry, Alison.
Yes, Kevin, I understood that one of the stall holders from the farmers markets on Wednesday had donated thousands of bulbs to Woodford Park.
I think that might be the chap that donated them to the Friends group. I think that might be the same one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Dominic Chappell.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Moving on to item 9, which is the town centre tree garden. We're asked to the members consider the planting options for the walled garden and allocate funding from available Section 106 monies for this purpose. And you will see there are 2 alternatives at the back. Kevin, you've been involved deeply in this, so...
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If I can just give a brief background. At the last meeting of this committee, we discussed some options around that, and it was requested that we come back with some firmer options around the actual plants and planting scheme from the grounds team. What you're looking at here is a couple of options at different price points, obviously. The first one being more wildflower based, the second one being more shrubs with areas for planting around that, which initially would be seasonal, but what we're trying to build into it is the ability to accommodate community use as we go forwards, but get it started now so that we're not sort of faffing around, so to speak, for any further forward. One of the key things from that discussion was that we include things that have some sensory value, so both colour, smell, those kinds of things, and our grounds team, particularly our grounds officer, who I had a good discussion with the other day, returned from furlough, and actually it was subsequent to the report, is really keen to be involved in that. He recently completed a course that he'd done over the last couple of years in just that sort of thing, so it's very much up his street. So what we're looking at is those options, and I think both would represent a good starting point. I think the thing to take from it is that it's not going to be a permanent fix in that sense. It's going to be something that we can change, we can adapt and add to. It's going to grow over time as more people get involved. But if we can get something that's really nice and attractive in that first season, and use volunteers that we've already got for that, and then we can look at moving that forwards with some different uses in different areas. Councillor Baker, you've got your hand up already.
Yes, a couple of things. Did Dominic Chappell contact you? Have you had any dialogue with him? He sent me a message with a lot of good ideas. Well, I thought they were good ideas. I'm not a gardener, but
yeah.
Have you had any dialogue with him yet?
Not directly, but I did get your email, and what I have got just sort of moves on a bit to that community element. There's probably two areas of community input and involvement, I think. One, we've had quite a lot of offers of assistance, just labour, I suppose, from individuals who are happy to come and help and just be involved in things, which is fabulous, because when we actually plant out initially, those people, obviously we'll have to observe social distancing and all those things, but actually we'll have volunteers who can come and help with that, and that's been really encouraging. The second bit of input, I think, is about more a technical level, about the sorts of things that can go in, and we're looking at those as we go forward. As I said, I think this will probably change as we go forward over time in terms of what plants are in there, etc. And also what we want to include, we've had nothing concrete, but we've had some inquiries from Addington School, for example, who are going to write to us, have expressed an interest, but they'd like to write to us with a bit of a proposal for how they could use an area of it. And I think those are the things that going forwards we can really try and encourage and get different things happening in there.
Okay, can I carry on? I've got some other things as well.
Yes, of course.
The Addington School thing is that they are very strong in horticulture for some of the pupils there. It's ideal for them, so it worked well. Don't know whether it was a mistake, but option 2 includes snowdrops, but the option 2 list of items didn't. So I don't know whether that was something that was overlooked in there.
Yes.
Okay. On the items there, you might again, Dominic, as you know, is a good friend of the town council. He manages the Wednesday farmers market on behalf of the TCMI, and he might be able to get things at cost. Just thinking how we could keep the costs down. I don't know how we would normally source that. And my final question is, I noticed the topsoil there. One of the comments I've seen on social media over the period of time I've been monitoring that is that there is a concern that soil creeping up too high at the base of the trees actually kill them. Now, I know some people might like that to happen. So are we clear that the 30 tons of topsoil aren't going to give that sort of damage around the base of the trees?
Yes. Terry, who'd come up with the figure, had done a calculation on that and thinks it will be all right. That said, what we've asked is for the tree officer at Wokingham Borough Council to give us to confirm that that's okay, and also to look at carrying out some thinning out of the trees to let a bit of light in. we did talk to her about that way back when, before the garden actually went in, and no work was done. So she was coming out to have a look at that, but I do need to chase her up.
Yeah, just on that last point, those trees have not, as far as I'm aware, have not been touched probably for 10 or even 20 years. They desperately need pollarding. It's not just a question of clearing light. It is, you know, the whole reason, as I understand it, for pollarding trees is to improve their growth and the quality of the tree. Because it hasn't been done, the only thing you have to be careful of is we've got lights all over them. So that might be an issue. But thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Doyle.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not a gardener. If you had a look at my back garden, you'd understand that pretty quickly. But I actually see this as something rather important. I don't know which of the two options that you're proposing will have the greatest, shall we say, impact on people. But I think at this point in time, and when this will be done, it will be important to all the people that use that Woodley Centre to see something that lifts their spirits, because everybody in our community need their spirits lifting. So whatever option we go for, I would like to see that to be one of the objectives of whatever we try to do. So if the 4,000 whatever it is option would have the greater impact in doing that, then I would support that, even though it's more money. So, you know, please help us understand. My garden's full of colour, but it's not colour I put there. You know, I don't know which is going to be the best, but I really do think it's important that this is something we can do to make people feel a little bit better.
Yeah. For once, Councillor Doyle, I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. Councillor Swaddle.
Oh, I just wanted to ask about the 30 tonnes of topsoil that's going in, Kevin. Whenever I've peered over the wall at the land, there's quite a few manhole covers, to access to, I don't know if it's water, electric, gas, whatever.
Yeah.
And I would have thought they'd have to be kept clear. Is that right?
Yes, so we would have to do something with that, the cover, so to raise the cover so that it's accessible.
So is that factored in the cost of what we're going to do?
Yeah, I don't think it's a particularly difficult thing to do. You need to have something on there which I think you can buy, which it's not you don't have to concrete anything in. You can fit something over the drain cover, which basically, I'm not explaining it very well, like an extended drain cover which raises the height of it.
And how many of those do we need?
I don't actually know how many are there, so that isn't included specifically in that cost. So that is something would need to fit in there.
Okay, sorry. My second question is most people have already planted bulbs. We're heading towards late November. Are we going to have the right time to be able to get these bulbs planted?
I believe so. If we're sort of ready to go now, but yeah, you're right. It is pretty late. We're at the later end of it. But yeah, if we got on with it, so to speak, then yes, we could.
Right.
Thank you, Kevin.
Councillor Heath.
Thank you. In these straitened times, obviously, we've got to think about the money, even though this is 106. Is there any chance to, as this is originally a Wokingham Borough Council construction, any chance of getting them to fund the gap between options 1 and options 2? That's one idea. And the other one is, I don't know if we're going to discuss it after, seating. I mean, yeah, the walls do provide de facto seating, but as I said before, they're not high enough for old people that they can't get back up. So I hope somewhere in all of this, there'd be an opportunity for some seating for old people, which even if it's just you know, adding a few more rows to the wall. I don't know, but you'd certainly have to have it higher than what it is at the moment, so that old people can make use of it. Thank you.
Yeah. If I can just say about the seating, we've discussed it, not gone round in circles exactly, but what we've realised is that we do need to be very careful about what goes in. There are some different requirements for older people who may need an armrest and may not be comfortable sitting on a wall at various heights, although for some people that is fine.
Yeah.
What we said we would do at that last meeting is come forward with a proposal for some seating that we can talk to some groups about what they need in that place, and also to make sure we get it in the right place is we need to be talking with the town centre manager and the market manager and those shops in that area about where people are, and so that we don't put it in the wrong place, because that would be the worst of all scenarios. So we haven't got those options to present at the moment, but that's the intention, is to come back with a more focused proposal about seating around there.
Thank you. And when those seats go in, I'll have to change my map.
Yes, thank you for that, by the way.
Councillor Sohn, you have a question. Councillor Sohn?
Right, I'm with you. Just carrying on with the seating, I don't know whether consideration, if we do go with seating rather than just leaving the wall, if consideration is given to using seating having used recyclable material. Obviously benefits from that, apart from just the environmental issues, is the fact that they're very difficult to vandalise. They require no maintenance. And also you can sit on them in the summer, which, unlike our metal ones, we sort of have a bit of a problem with. And while I'm on the subject of recycled material, at one of the borough meetings, it was mentioned that if we were to go down the line of recovering our black plastic boxes, which we will be abandoning shortly, they are the material that these seats are made of. So it might be something to consider when you do come round to decide whether we want seating or not. There you go.
Thank you. Well, everyone's spoken on the subject. So, what is the consensus opinion for the larger option 2 or option 1? My own feeling on this is actually, like Councillor Doyle, to go for option 2. As the money's coming from Section 106 monies, I think the more colour we get in that town garden area, the
Chairman,
better.
Chairman, sorry to interrupt you, but Councillor Doyle did want to speak, I believe, and then he's put his hand down.
It's really, I'm only wanting to say, I didn't know that we were going to make a decision, and I was going to propose that we do make a decision. But before we make that decision, is either Ed or Kevin able to tell us, of the two options, which is going to give that impact to the people of Woodley?
If I can say that the differences are probably that the shrub planting will be able to provide more by way of sensory, something that smells, and because there's going to be stuff there that would provide something visually throughout the year rather than the wildflowers, which are a bit there and gone, that would have more benefit, if that's the right term. Yeah.
So we are now going to go ahead and ask Kevin to get on with one or the other. Is that the case?
Yeah, the recommendation is that the members consider the planting options and allocate funding from available Section 106 monies for this purpose. The two options, option 1 at 2,100, option 2 at 4,500. My own personal feeling is option 2 will have the greater impact initially, but still leave space for the other projects that you've got in mind, Kevin. So We will look at option 2 first of all, and I'll go to a vote. And
Sorry
ask
to
people-
interrupt again, David, Councillor Bragg, but Councillor Swaddle's got her hand up, or she's taking it down now. You do need
Yeah, I
to.
simply wanted to make a proposal that we accept option 2. And I'm looking for a seconder.
Right, well, I will second that myself, Alison. So can I put that to the vote, please? If you're in agreement, please show your hand. Oh, there we are.
Okay, that's agreed.
Right, lovely. Right, we are 5 to 10. We've only got a couple of items left. We'll go on to future agenda items, but can I ask people if they mind going on to about 10:05? Can we have a vote on that if to continue past 10 o'clock? Yep.
Sorry, Councillor Bragg. Can the town clerk advise us whether if we go for an extension, it's got to be for a full 30 minutes or earlier if we finish? Because I should imagine there's going to be quite a lot of debate on the contents of the urgency committee.
We can't hear you, Deborah.
Sorry, I suggest you seek the committee's views on extending it to 10:30.
Okay.
You can finish earlier if the business is finished, obviously.
So can we please have a vote on extending to 10:30? Okay. Right, move on to item 10, which is future agenda items. Does anyone have anything for future meetings? No. Publicity and website, item 11 on the agenda. Now, Keith, you've mentioned 1 or 2 items, such as the wildlife that needs publicising. Are there any other items that people have for publicity or the website?
Councillor Doyle has his hand.
Yeah, sorry guys. I've been getting emails all night about the fact that Chaz, the scout leader, the scouts are not doing their postal thing this year. I imagine everybody else is getting them, but I've had about 10 emails from various people telling me that Chaz and the scouts aren't doing their Christmas deliveries. So I think he's just trying to make sure that it gets out there and people are aware of it.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 12, which are the minutes of the urgency committee on the 5th of October on page 28. I trust everyone's had the opportunity to read that. Do we have any comments, or can I pass on to the next minutes?
Whoa, wait, whoa, too quick. Sorry. My hand's up.
Right, yes, Councillor Dole.
Yeah. As you all know well by now, all of this numbers stuff is gobbledygook to me. But when people say, I want to put off my loan payments, I start wondering, oh, what does this actually mean? So I looked at the numbers and I looked at the lists, and my mind became very confused. But what really, I don't really understand. And if I'd like the town clerk, Deborah, to help me understand a little bit, and very briefly, I don't want to keep everybody up all night, what it is we're asking for, and what does that mean to us as a council? What does it mean financially? And when do we pay this money back? because, you know, I'm a very cautious borrower, you know.
Sorry, would you, right. Councillor Doyle, the proposal is the Department of, the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government has offered to consider councils extending their loans for a period of time to allow them to recover financially. And what the town council is, what's been proposed is that, well, what's been agreed actually at a meeting today, is that I will provide information to the communities.gov.uk regarding the council's loans. And if you look at page 45 in your agenda, the proposal is that all the annuity loans, so if you look, it says type of loan at the top, and there are 3 maturity loans that are to do with the Oakwood Centre and paying off the principal. And then there are 7 other loans that we have that it is proposed we will seek to defer paying those for 24 months. And my understanding is that there is, in order to be able to waive any fees associated with that, I have to fill in a form on behalf of the council, which I've started doing, and that needs to be with them by the 20th of this month, so day after tomorrow.
Sorry, Deborah, did you actually say defer paying them?
Yes.
So no repayment on those annuities.
Yeah.
For 2 years.
Mm.
So we're extending them 2 years out from there.
Yes.
Have we explained this to the public at all?
Not yet, I don't believe.
Right. Okay.
The point, can I just explain? Part of the point of this is that it would raise £88,000 in a financial, what we have as our financial year, that will enable the council a bit more flexibility financially, and also in terms of what precept it sets.
But I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, you've just asked the public for an increase in the precept.
No,
well, you've asked them if they would accept an increase in their council.
From the consultation.
Yes, from the consultation. Yeah. Of £1 a month, as far as I can tell, a week or a month. But you didn't tell them that that would go on for an additional 2 years.
No, I think you're misunderstanding. The extension of the loan means that we wouldn't pay our loan payments for 24 months. We would have a holiday,
yes. Yeah.
And that we would pick up once we are out of the pandemic and things have hopefully got back to normal. We would have the funds anyway, because Ed will be able to sell the space at his the leisure centre and the gym, and we'll be able to sell the space in these halls. That's where most of our money comes from. And then we take up repaying it. Mm. Of course, if everything got better in 1 year, we'll take up repaying them again. That might be something the council decides to do if it's got the money.
I love your optimism. I really do. I
was sort of joking. I'm sort of joking. Councillor Bragg.
Councillor Keith.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add something to Councillor Doyle's question, and that is one of the underlying themes that have come across in comments on the cards and in a lot of social media, or certainly Facebook comments, is a desire, not a desire actually, a demand that the town council does everything in its power to reduce expenditure before they moved on to say we have to increase the council tax precept. And that's a legitimate demand. It's a reasonable demand, and this loan deferment is just part of that process that started off with postponing capital projects, etc., etc. So if we can have a holiday on the loan payments, we are able to go back and illustrate yet again to residents that we have tweaked and pulled every single lever to keep your council tax down to the lowest it possibly can. I just hope that helps.
I fully appreciate that, and I'm sure we're all trying to do the best we can for the benefit of the community. But the good lady that created the politics of your party would never have put off paying tomorrow what she could pay today. And I am very concerned that that is precisely what we're doing. We're saying we can't do it now, but we'll be able to do it in the future. And I just don't feel comfortable with, you know, paying the wolf tomorrow because he's hungry today. But I'll bow down to you good people. You all obviously know far better than I do.
What you're raising is another point in the mix, and you're arguing for a higher increase in the precept, because that's what it would mean, than we could possibly get away with. It's a legitimate argument, and it will be debated and discussed as we move into February when we do the precept setting. So it is a legitimate point you're making, and it's well made. Thank you.
Councillor Heath.
Thank you. Yes, the figures on page 39, presumably they're going to be revised. First of all, the fact the furlough's being extended, so that is that going on till March? I mean, that could be an extra £100,000. So I'm just checking that that will be factored in.
Can I just reply to that quickly now?
Yeah.
We don't know that it's going to be 80% until the end of March.
Right.
So
but it'll be something.
It'll be something, but it'll probably go down to 60. But
right.
we don't know that. So I've got to factor that in as well.
Yeah, but there'll be something right through to March then for furlough.
Yes. That's my understanding at the moment. Yes.
Okay. And also the assumptions used to estimate the income. This is the officers coming up with it. Is that the kind of middle scenario?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the ones after November, I would say they're possible, but we'll have to see what tier we're in when we come we come out of lockdown. So there's several different scenarios that, as Ed explained, we've been talking about how long we might be open till the end of the financial year and what kind of income we could get depending on what's allowed to be open.
Okay.
So if we can have the sports hall open, and the gym, we'll do okay probably.
Yeah. Okay, and the other thing is the expenses up to October is about 110,000 less than last year. From November through to March, it's 250,000 more than last year. What's the basis of that?
That's because this was done before I started doing my revised figures for the year end. So I've got some different figures that I'll be putting in there for the next one that gets produced for the urgency committee.
So we'll get an update then, because it just seemed strange that I can understand things certainly with income, but expenses being significantly more than last year seemed a little bit strange.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
You're going to put in a revised.
I will.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Then can we go on to the minutes of the urgency committee held on the 9th of November 2020, please. That's on page 34. Do we have any comments to be made on those minutes? No. That's lovely. I mean, most of the items are all concluded anyway. So that comes to the end of the meeting for tonight. Thank you all very much indeed. Right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.